This is a video on my Mini 14 and the reliability issues that I've had with it. Over the course of the video, I hope to explain my workflow for analyzing statistics and shooter's log in conjunction with high-speed video recording for the purpose of determining what the root cause of the reliability problems turns out to be, and then perhaps a problem/resolution statement. So as you can see from this picture right here, this is a round that jammed up in my gun. This is a Mini 14 shooting stock factory magazines, quality American brass, 5.56 and 2.23. But this particular jam here shows that the front of the bullet tip has, this is the left round in the magazine feeding, and instead of going in, it went angled and then jammed up. So this video begins the discussion. Now let's go to further analysis. So the general backstory of this firearm is that here's a spreadsheet of my shooter's log. Half of this is hidden. I'll show you the rest in a moment. What this shows is that over about 3 or 4 range sessions, I fired 349 rounds, and these were all the jams that I experienced. 10 jams over a course of 349 rounds fired. Like I said, I am shooting factory ammunition. The gun is stock, and I am shooting some 30-round magazines, some 20-round magazines. I'm shooting some 5.56 and some 2.23. I'm doing my due diligence to confirm that firearm is, cleaned and lubed as required, and I'm still getting these failures. And so as we go on and look at some slow motion video, I'm going to make some hypotheses and proposals and then prove whether I'm correct or not in my thinking process. And so here's the first video. I guess what we should do first is look at a round that feeds properly and then start studying the rounds that don't feed properly. So here's one that feeds just fine. The charging handle comes rearward, the case ejects, it picks up the next round, and it feeds just fine. So if we go ahead and find a round that jams, there's one right there. There is a failure to eject. Now I'm going to be honest, that's a bit of an anomaly. I've only experienced one failure to eject during the entire life of the rifle, so this is quite an anomaly. But what we can see here is that the charging handle begins to move rearward, and right there you can barely see it. Wish I could zoom in a little more. That's a little better. You see this little white, not this line here, this piece of silver. That is the ejector, and this yellow, this brass color, is the case that's supposed to be ejected by now. You can see that the case is past the ejector, which is evidence that through some stacking of tolerances, or perhaps it's off, one of the parts is off by 1/10 of a millimeter, what we have is a situation where the bolt was supposed to eject the case, but didn't. So I'll just play the video just in smooth motion, just so you can see it. And right around here is where the case definitely should be ejected. You should never have a situation where the ejector is in front of the bolt face, but the case is still there. So let me just let this play through. Boom, jam. So there's one. There's one jam. And like I said, it's an anomaly. It's only happened once, so I won't talk too much about how I plan to fix that. I basically don't plan to fix that. Let's go to the next video. This video here, let's see what kind of jam this shows. Now that didn't jam, but there's something of note here. So charging handle comes rearward, and here's something to note. Here's a white line. This white line represents the edge of the charging handle, and this is the scope mounting block. If this white line is here, that means the charging handle did indeed go all the way to the rear. That's something to watch for. But here's what's important. Right there, the round on the left is in line with the receiver as it should be. And then right there, it angles a little bit. And by the way, you should notice the bolt is nowhere near the case that just shifted to the right. This is not the bolt causing the round on the left to shift to the right. This is, well, my hypothesis is excessive recoil, but we'll get there. So If I go back and forth, what you'll see is the round on the left is doing that. So we'll see more extreme examples where it goes like that and then jams, but this is an example of one that tried to jump out of the magazine feed lips, but fed just fine. So there's one video. I'm just collecting data, looking at video, collecting data. Let's see here. Let's go back. Can I see what's going on with this one? There we go. That's a much more extreme case. See? In fact, I'll make it smaller so you can see the whole thing. If I play it through, jam. Okay? So if I do that again, but this time one frame at a time, in this frame, the round on the left is facing in line with the receiver. And if I go back and forth, you'll see this. And you can barely tell, but the bolt case, the bolt face, has not really touched the round yet. This round is deciding to shift to the right long before the bolt face ever touches it. And this angle here really shouldn't be the case. These rounds have more of a straight feeding angle when they successfully feed. And there's other stuff going on, but I'm just going to bounce back and forth in this. You can see this round dancing around, okay? So let's move on and see another video. Let's see here. Let's play it in full motion. There we go. You can see that jam. Let's go back. Frame 1, frame 2, frame 3. The charging handle is moving rearward, and then you can see the case on the left angling again. It's angling even more. That's quite extreme. And now it's all the way to the right of the chamber. This is a similar jam as to the photo you first saw, and it jams up. The interesting thing to note here is this round seems to be fine until a particular point. And the fact that this charging handle is less blurry, okay, we've got a charging handle that's blurry, 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 and then it's not blurry. That means it's not moving very much, which means this frame is the exact frame where the full power of the charging handle slamming into the receiver is then absorbed by the receiver. This frame is when the transfer of energy happens, and then the very next frame, the round jumps out. So I'm beginning to paint a picture through analysis, and you'll see in the spreadsheet, my analysis has got some strength behind it. That my analysis, my hypothesis is that I'm going to call it excessive recoil in conjunction with perhaps used magazine springs and used recoil spring and perhaps slightly hotter ammo. They're all combining to make a situation where the rounds are jumping out of control of the feed lips even before the bolt touches them. So you can tell that the bolt hasn't touched the case yet. See this? This, in my opinion, should not be taking place. And in analysis videos of the rounds that don't jam, they don't do this dancing and jostling and jumping around. Okay? So there's that video. And this one here, let's see which one this is. This is a bolt override. You can see what happens here. The charging handle comes rearward, and then it doesn't pick up a new case. It just ends up with an empty chamber, and the bolt doesn't even go all the way home. So in this case, what we've got is the charging handle coming to the rear, and there is a gap between the bolt face and the case, the next round. And right here, just see what's going on with the rounds in the top of the magazine. They're sort of dancing, sort of doing this. And if you look at it horizontally, they're sort of doing this. The rounds are doing this a little bit. Sometimes they go left to right, sometimes they go up and down. But in this case, if the round is doing this at the exact second that the bolt comes forward, you're going to get this instead of this. Okay, so I'm going to call that a bolt override. There we go. Hopefully I'm painting a good picture so far. Hopefully what I'm saying is making sense. Here's another video. There. These two frames, I'm going to go back and forth. If you'll notice, the bolt hasn't touched this case in any way. And you can see again that the round is doing this, okay? So if you look at it horizontally, as the charging handle slams into the receiver, the round's sort of doing this, right? And if it happens to go like that, right as the bolt comes home, it's gonna miss instead of hitting this. And if I play it forward, you'll kind of see it happen. Empty chamber, okay? So all of these videos I'm meaning to show you are simply slow motion video analysis. Now I'm going to unhide most of this spreadsheet, and what you'll see is that I had a theory, and the theory is that excessive recoil, I'll call it excessive recoil, is causing the rounds in the magazine to jump and dance and jostle and move around far more than they should. And that my proposal is to remove some recoil from the system. And so this yellow line represents that in February, I installed a smaller third-party gas port bushing. I believe it's the 0.045-inch gas port bushing, which is significantly smaller than the factory bushing. And what you can see is in the shooter's spreadsheet, above the line, with everything being stock, I got 10 failures over 340 rounds, 349. And after I installed the new gas port bushing, thus removing some recoil from the system, I was able to get through 3 range sessions, which equals 234 rounds and 0 failures. I think the spreadsheet is pretty good evidence that my theory is, it has some strength in it. I'm not willing to call it 100% solution right now, but I'm going to talk through that in a second. The fact is, I had a gun, it was jamming quite a lot. I couldn't understand what was causing the jams. I had a theory, used some video to analyze some things. The proposal was a new gas port bushing, and suddenly, voila, 100% success. So hopefully you can use methods like this, like spreadsheets and shooter's logs and slow motion video and photo analysis to determine if you have a similar problem with your Mini 14 or some other gun. Hopefully you can apply this in your shooting situation. Now, I am willing to spend a moment talking about magazine springs. Maybe a fresh magazine would make this better. Maybe a stronger recoil spring. I'm sort of okay with that, but I didn't want to rely on that because the thing about springs is they eventually get worn out. So I'd rather employ a solution that is a little bit more permanent, meaning, you know, springs wear out. And if you told me I had a 20-year-old magazine and I stepped on it and broke it and it was rusty, I would fully understand. But these magazines are not overly used, they're not abused, and therefore my firearm should be able to operate with them successfully, even though the springs aren't completely tight. Anyways, hope you can apply this video to your shooting sessions, and I hope you have good luck with your Mini 14.